Hi guys, Workouts Critics. I'm Ruby.
You're not Lamia.
I was gonna say I'm Luby.
I'm Lamia. This is Ruby, and
This is Lamia.
I am Lamia. And today we're gonna review one of my favorite shows. I don't know if is it your favorite too?
It's one of my top 5 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna review Gossip Girl,
Gossip Girl. Yeah.
aka one of the best shows in history.
The best fashion show, I would say, honestly.
The best show, period. How can we start? I have so much to say, and like my brain is just going blank right
Okay.
now.
When did you watch Gossip Girl? Did you watch it as it was coming out, or did you watch it later?
No, I mean they had when I started watching it, they had like one season who
Okay.
didn't come out yet,
Okay.
and it's so funny the way that I started watching Gossip Girl. Basically, I bought the season 3 DVDs back
Okay, yeah.
because back at the time we used to buy DVDs.
Okay, but we're not that old, okay?
Yeah, kind of starting to be. I mean, I was 14, so not that old. And I watched season 3, did not understand why Blair was so mean, why everyone was crazy on that show, but I loved it. Then I was like, you know what, I need to understand the backstory. So I bought season 2.
Okay.
Watched season 2, then I was like, no, I need to understand the basics. I bought season 1. So I actually watched it backwards.
That's a weird occurrence, but
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's nice.
And then I watched the other season who came out after, and I've watched it a million times after. Yeah. I'm watching it right now, rewatching it again.
I tried watching an episode this week just to remember what it was about. I watched it during the pandemic for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was
very
wasn't that
recent.
long ago.
No, not at
Wow.
all. It was already all the episodes came out. I had heard so many people talk about it. I was never really into TV shows, but you know, it was a pandemic. And yeah, so I decided to watch it and I loved it. And all it made me want to do is just to like reinvent my wardrobe and like my whole personality. It was very
And
fun.
it's crazy because it's fashion from like the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and you've watched it pretty recently,
Yeah.
and the fashion is still very relevant right now.
It's timeless. I think they did such a good job. And
Yeah.
yeah. And also I was trying to remember it, but it was in the early 2000s, and I just loved the phones, like, you know, it
The
was before
flip-
social media, before
The
anything.
flip
Yeah, the flip
phones.
phones,
Yeah.
It's crazy because I think Gossip Girl is a big part of like social media. Like if it happened right now, it would have been, I don't know, it would have been very interesting. I don't think it would have gotten as much success though, because right now I think everybody is like, Gossip Girl was like, she violated people's privacy, right? Or okay,
Yeah.
we don't know. Gossip Girl violated people's privacy, but it was still, I don't know. Nowadays, I feel like everybody's so open to put everything, every part of their life out there, so it would have been a very different narrative. Have you watched the reboot?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
did you
I
like it?
did. No, I hated it. I hated it because they tried to be very politically correct
Okay.
while trying to reuse the formulas that worked for Gossip Girl. And it's like, yeah, they would attempt to do something, but they wouldn't try hard enough to in order to not offend anyone. And it's just not the way Gossip Girl worked. Gossip Girl was insane when it came out. People, like parents, used to like destroy their kids' DVD, and I read this in a magazine.
Oh,
When
yeah.
it first came out, like there were a lot of people who condemned the show. And then you know what the people who worked on the show did? They used every critic as like promo for their show. You had these huge like Gossip Girl posters with like, oh, don't let your kids watch it. Oh, it was crazy.
That's great reverse psychology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's sexy and provocative and cool and edgy, and it's timeless, and
It is.
I'm fascinated by that show. But like growing up and rewatching Gossip Girl, especially right now, I think my favorite character is that. And it's very like I haven't met yet anyone who has the same opinions as me when it comes to Gossip Girl, which is why I'm very excited to just voice them right now and let them out. But yeah, can we talk about each of the characters
Yes.
individually? Who do you
Yes.
want to start with?
Oof. Let's start with Serena because I think the whole show
Yes.
starts with her just coming back to New York.
Hmm.
So let's talk about Serena. Okay, what do we say? I really like her character. She's not my favorite, but the things I like about Serena van der Woodsen is that she's very effortless,
Hmm.
and she's playing the role of this very rich kid, but
Hmm.
even in the TV show, yes, she has like some like we see it portrayed in her personality, but
Yeah.
yet she's very modest in a way, and I think that's what I liked most about her character. So yeah, I would go with that's my opinion on Serena. What about what about your opinion on Serena?
I totally agree with you. She's very, very charismatic, and
Hmm.
it's basically due, like, thanks to Blake Lively,
Yeah,
who's very, very, very charismatic and who
yeah,
carried on this character and played it so beautifully. And I loved the way like, everything that they wrote for Serena when it comes to the first seasons. Like, her like leaving New York because she hooked up with her best friend's boyfriend, and then we get to find out that it's actually also because she thinks that she killed someone.
yeah.
And there were a lot of things that were happening to her, but like I feel like as the show went on, like the only thing that was happening for her was her dating life.
Yeah, which is something I want to talk about. Do you think there was a lot of character development for the characters? Because I feel, and again, I've watched this show a very long
Mm,
time ago, but from memory, yes, we see them evoluting and like growing up and moving from high school to college to careers and
mm,
everything. But I think that most of the characters stayed the same. The only character in whom I can really see change would be Jenny Humphrey, like Dan's sister. That character went 180 degrees
yeah.
during the show, but everybody else, in my opinion, stayed very similar to who they were with a few, maybe Blair Waldorf. Blair
Mm.
changed a lot as well, and Chuck Bass. Okay, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm realizing. But I think Serena stayed the same for,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I feel like it's justified too, because she was like dealing with a lot of stuff, and
hmm,
just because she was charismatic and she was this nepo baby who had everything handed to her, like no one took her seriously.
yeah,
But like she had abandonment issues because her father rejected her. She was always even like that chase of love could be like analyzed as like a chase of like a fear of void and a fear of abandonment. She literally couldn't stay alone for like more than 5 seconds. She had uh, alcohol issues in the beginning of the show, and um, she was light and very. She seemed happy, and I feel like this is why we didn't take her seriously. Whereas when it comes to a character like Blair, when she hinted to the fact that she had an eating disorder, like it just like it shone a light that was like it shone a light on that, and we did like take her seriously, and I don't know why.
I don't remember Blair having an eating disorder.
She did in the first seasons,
Okay,
but they didn't like carry on this story
okay,
during like the other seasons, but she did, like they showed a few scenes of her throwing up because she had bulimia.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, her mother is a fashion designer, and
Mm.
I'm pretty sure she had the pressure of the whole,
Yeah.
especially at the time, it was
Mm.
huge. Everything like the norms of like the
Yeah, like
fashion
and even
industry.
the actors on that show,
Yeah.
everyone was skinny, whereas when you watch the new Gossip Girl, it's much more representative of what society looks like right now.
I think that's good. I also want to talk about the ages of the actors. I don't know exactly how old they were when they played the show, but I imagine they were in their early mid 20s.
Yeah.
And I think that's very fair because it's, you're not it's for you don't want to have kids where I mean we have child actors, but for
Hmm.
like these kind of TV shows it could be tiring. But at the same time I always find it funny how, you know, we portray teenagers like we portray young adults as
Yeah.
teenagers. And I think this could be very misleading. I don't think I would have related to anything that happened in Gossip Girl when I was in high school.
Hmm.
It was most, yeah.
I don't see anyone playing Chuck Bass besides Ed
I
Westwick.
think he's my favorite character in the show.
Okay.
I just loved how he was portrayed,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved his character evolution as well.
Mm-hmm.
Minus all the issues, but I think it was a very problematic character, but I think that's the fun part about having these kind of TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see messed up characters and you want to see how they
Totally.
fix their lives through everything that they went through. Yeah. And yes, I couldn't imagine anybody else playing
Mm.
Chuck than Ed.
And also, like, there was like a huge evolution with his character. Like,
Yeah.
it just goes to show that, like, people aren't just like white or black. Like, it's just there is a grayness to people, and he was a villain at the beginning of the show, and he just turned into he started as the show went on. He was better than himself, but it wasn't like a straight line. He would stumble and like just like fall back into his old habits. And I'm thinking of when he tried to sell his girlfriend to get his hotel back.
I'm starting to remember this, but I had completely forgotten about it. Was
Yeah,
it Blair?
it was Blair.
Oh, the things that they went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, what do you think of Blair?
Blair, I really like her. I like, as you said, her determination. And she is kind of a Nepo baby, but not really. She's,
Mm,
upper middle class. She's not exactly Serena van der Woodsen, but she's very hardworking. I really admire her honesty and her straightforwardness. And I do think we have to really make a difference between being honest and being mean. And I think that Blair was both honest and mean, but I also loved her character evolution. And I
mhm.
think that she was, yeah, with time, she has slowly become a kinder and nicer person. And yeah, I just say, when I think of Gossip Girl, I don't think about Serena van der Woodsen. I think
Think about
about
Blair.
Blair. I think she was the one like holding the show together.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I totally agree. I feel like, although the show makes it seem as if Serena is the main character, I feel like Blair is the main
Hmm.
character too. And like, I tend to think that like people like Blair better than Serena, and
Yeah.
like, but also, I feel like she was mean. She was vicious and mean and manipulative, and she was like ruining everybody's life. And I loved how she was unapologetic about it,
Hmm.
and I loved how every single one of her actions was justified. And the overall justification to me was because she needed to have control over
Yeah.
every situation of her in her life, because like she had an eating disorder. This is like it just you're so out of control when you have an eating disorder. Her father left her for her father left her and her mom for a man and just moved to Paris. And then she had to pursue this emotionally unavailable guy. Her ex-boyfriend cheated on her with her best friend, who left the city to go to boarding school without telling her anything. So um yeah, I do understand why she was like she, she, why this was her defense mechanism, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
And I also like how, yes, she was mean, but like when it came to the people that she loved, she fought so hard for them, and she was rooting for them, and she was so loyal, and she hated when people weren't as loyal as her. So these values make you love her and like get attached to her because you can relate to her. And to have such an unrelatable character and on screen and to still relate to them is great writing. And
Yeah.
also her lines are iconic.
See, you were saying that, and I just remembered one line. And again, I watched the show 4 years ago, but
Mhm.
there's this one line that just stayed in my head. There's a scene where Serena was having a really bad time. It was
Yeah,
after she remembered, like, the guy who overdosed. I don't remember the
yeah,
story completely, but Serena was having a really hard time, and she didn't want to tell her friends about the things she went through. And then Blair comes over, and she's like, "We're the not judgmental Breakfast Club."
we,
And I think that line, it was so wholesome. It's
mhm,
they really felt, I mean, all the, like, the four kids mainly. I'm talking about Chuck, Nathan, Serena, and Blair, because Dan was sort of outcast,
mhm,
and even though he tried to fit in, he was still an outcast for them. Most of Not most of the time, but like he worked hard to be
yeah,
part of the group. But all four of them, they had so many issues that not a lot of people understand
mhm,
since they're from this very wealthy class. And they still managed to create like a family within themselves, and I
Yeah.
really admire that. Yeah.
A
So
dysfunctional
a
family,
very
but this is
dysfunctional family.
but aren't like most families have issues,
Yeah, I
and
was
I
gonna
feel
ask
like
what family is not dysfunctional.
exactly. And yeah, I loved how they all sticked for each other.
Yeah.
Like even though I remember so many scenes where Blair and Serena were fighting, but the moment that one of them would have an issue, the other one would forget about the fight. I'm thinking about the scene in Paris where Blair pushed Serena in a fountain,
Yes.
and then she came to her and she was like, "Oh, you know, like I'm feeling bad because of my breakup." Blair said that to Serena, and Serena was like, "Okay, it's fine that you throwed me in a fountain. I'm gonna,
I love
we're
how
still gonna have
dramatic
fun."
they were.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's the beauty about like really good friendships. I think really good friendships can have a lot of fights and they still like manage through it. I think
Hmm.
when you argue with someone, it helps you build a stronger, like
Yeah.
if you overcome it, it helps you build a stronger foundation. And
Hmm.
I think they really showed it well.
Hmm.
Yeah. And now that you're saying Paris, I keep remembering the TikTok. If you're gonna be sad in Paris.
Paris.
And this is from Gossip Girl. Yeah.
The Paris episodes were one of my favorites.
Hmm.
They were just so beautiful, and I loved all the French actors and
Yeah.
on those episodes. Um, Nate, what do you think of Nate?
I I don't like think anything of Nate. That's the
Same.
thing.
No thoughts,
I
just
think,
vibes.
yeah, exactly. That's literally it. Nate is just like this very quiet, good-looking guy who just I don't know, but like if you come to think about it, now that I'm thinking about it, he did cheat on his girlfriend with
Mhm.
her best friend. So like deep down, when you think about the things he's done, he dated no judgment, but he did date an older woman, and like he just had a
But
bunch of weird
it's like
relationships.
every action that he did came from a good place. Like he did
Yeah,
not have a twisted bone in
yeah.
him. But he wasn't mean. Like I remember during one of the final seasons, um, there was like this episode where Gossip Girl revealed like all the people who sent her messages,
Okay.
and Nate was the only one who never sent something to
Yeah.
Gossip Girl.
I don't remember this.
Yeah.
That's nice. I think he was just this very kind person who was
Mhm.
mistaken for being naive just because he was
Mhm.
very kind. But yeah,
But I think he was quite naive too. He always seemed like the last one to
yeah,
figure out that someone was bad and had the worst intentions.
yeah. Can we talk about Lily Bass and Rufus Humphrey?
She's just so unbothered. She sent her daughter to jail. She just like she doesn't care. She's just
Yeah.
living her life and not worrying about anything. But I loved like she was such a Upper East Side mom. Like this is how I imagine an Upper East Side mom
Yeah.
to be like.
Yeah. And you know, one thing I just noticed a lot about her, it's her facial expression. She almost has none.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, you know, I don't know if that's what the actress did or if it was part of
Mhm.
her acting, but I think that when like it's all the Botox and all, you know, that you can't show any facial. I don't know. I just Lily Bass is just a mood. So
Mhm.
unbothered, doesn't care, as you said.
Mhm.
And yeah, what about Rufus? Rufus, I just felt bad for him most of the time. He just felt so out of place sometimes.
Like he's just like always making waffles and like always like during every single episode he's talking about waffles or like fighting with Jenny, but he's a good dad and he's like trying. I feel like the whole point of him is just to show that like you could have something that's more priceless than money, because I feel like most of the rich kid always they were kind of jealous of Dan and Jenny
Yeah,
for having a dad who cared. Like when
yeah,
Jenny got in trouble, like her friends told her that like she was lucky that her dad cared
yeah,
enough to punish her, because
yeah,
like most of the other kids they would get into drugs and like they would go to jail and do so many crazy things and their parents wouldn't care. They would fix everything with money and move on.
yeah. I also think it was nice for a change to have a single dad, because even though their mother was not that much out of the picture,
Yeah,
but he was the one who was mostly involved with them. And I think it's a nice portrayal, and he seemed like a very caring dad. So it was,
true.
yeah.
I love your point about this because we're used to seeing moms
Hmm.
like making breakfast and like nagging their kids for to do their homeworks and
Yeah.
stuff. And this is, I feel like, the first time and the only time where we see a dad, a single dad, who's like that caring and that attentive
Hmm.
about what his kids are doing.
Yeah.
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 Can we talk about Dan?
Yes, you can tell. Best for last, of
The
course.
best for last. He's not the best. I don't like him for the right reasons. I just like the element, the surprise element that
Yeah.
came with him,
Yeah.
and I like his character development. He did, like he turned out to be a bad person, but like love the evolution. I love what they did with this, and I feel like obviously you know that Dan is Gossip Girl,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and like I feel like everyone was shocked about this reveal. Penn Badgley himself, too, the guy who plays Dan, he's totally against the fact that he is Gossip Girl. But to me, it makes a perfect sense
Yeah.
because like everyone was doing so many crazy things. Like everyone showed their bad side, Jenny included. And Dan was the only one left. He was always trying to do the right thing, and like he was always trying to show that he had better morals than his peers. And it just did not sit right with me because why would you be so adamant on being part of a world that you are condemning during the first now that I'm watching Gossip Girl and now that I know that Dan is Gossip Girl, it makes sense because he during the first season he used to talk about how he wanted to be a writer and he used to do these internships. I'm thinking of the second season where the writers that he would work for, they used to tell him that in order to be a great writer, you need to do something dangerous. You need to
Yeah.
be closer to the people who inspire you, and you need to take risks. And this is exactly what he did.
But I think that, yes, I agree with you, but I think that in order to be a great writer, you shouldn't just take risks, because as Gossip Girl, Dan was only an audience. Even when he was Gossip Girl, like he ended up finding his way in and
Mhm.
living life. But I don't think that just Gossip Girl made him become a good writer, because when he was Gossip Girl, him as Gossip Girl, he was just writing and seeing things from the outside. I think what really helped him was how he introduced himself in Gossip Girl to become part of the story and to be able to be part of that group and actually live his life. I think in order to be a great
Mhm.
writer, you need to experience things and not just write about them.
But this is exactly what happened to
Yeah.
him. He got his ticket into these people's life in such a subtle way. They never suspected him. And then he wrote a book about these people.
Yeah.
And his book was a best-selling book.
Yeah.
And so he got what he wanted. He got it in twisted ways, but he did get what he wanted, and we did get to see that he perfectly belonged with them because he did have that twisted side that we never got to see and that we'll never see because after the reveal the show was over.
Yeah.
And it made a perfect sense to me that Dan was Gossip Girl, and I'm so happy that they took this risk and that they chose him. And I feel like this is why Gossip Girl works, and this is why we keep watching it because they bet um, on the most risky choice.
Yeah.
Whereas when you think of shows like maybe Pretty Little Liars, everyone wanted one of the girls to be A,
Hmm.
and the reveal was so disappointing because they chose the safe option. You can't please everyone, but you can make something that would last in people's minds.
Can we talk about Pretty Little Liars for a moment? Because
Yes.
it's one of the shows that I watched while it was coming out.
Hmm.
So I watched it when I was fairly young, also when I was about 14 years old. And I loved the TV show so much up until the end, where
Hmm.
they just ended up creating twins for people just to end up having A. I think that was a very disappointing end. But again, the TV show itself, I think the thing that makes these TV shows good is not just the beginning and the end of the TV show. I think we keep watching those shows even though we know the ending of it,
Hmm.
because of the relationship between the
Yeah.
characters. I think that's what we enjoy about the shows. And again, I still stand by my point. The fashion of these shows, and like
Amazing.
especially Gossip Girl, it's still timeless.
Hmm.
And they did work very hard on the wardrobe. I think I've seen interviews and behind the scenes, and they did have all the designers that they've talked about in the show, and I think that makes it all the more impressive. Impressive.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I loved watching Pretty Little Liars, and the ending was disappointing. I
Yeah.
loved the fashion in Pretty Little Liars too, and I loved the acting and the vibe of it. It's very similar to Gossip Girl when
Yeah.
it comes to the vibes and the codes and like it's risky too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't watch the last seasons for anything in the world, and I think that the reboot for Pretty Little Liars right now is a fail too. I've
Yeah.
seen the first season, and it's a horror thing right now,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's good. But yeah, I like Dan, and I think that his show right now, You, is the
Yeah.
evolution of Dan.
I know, right?
It's totally the
Yeah.
evolution of Dan.
It's, I mean, he loves books. He works in a bookstore.
He
He's a
likes a blonde
stalker.
girl.
Yes, I don't think it's the evolution. I think this is what would have happened to Dan if his book
Yeah,
wasn't a success. Like if he
totally.
didn't end up like making it,
But
he
you know
would have
what? Like
become.
his book wasn't a success. I think it was a best-selling book for like 1 week, and then like the sales
Oh,
dropped,
okay.
and he started like writing something else. I don't remember the last season very
Mhm.
well, but like I think this is what it was
Okay.
about.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think that someone would have been a better choice for the Gossip Girl reveal? Like which character would you have preferred as Gossip Girl?
No, nobody. No, maybe like not even a better option, but like another option would have probably been someone we don't know. But
Okay.
now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think, no, I think Dan
Hmm.
was a perfect fit. It makes sense.
It
It's
does.
very logical that, yeah, because he's an outcast. It's still very shocking to see him as Gossip Girl, but it was so well explained towards the end. Um, yeah, no, I would still pick Dan as Gossip Girl.
Hmm.
What about you? Would you have chosen someone else?
I love Dan, but maybe I think Nate would have worked too.
Hmm.
I think like it would have made sense in the sense of like okay, we saw this good side of him, but like oh, he's friends with these people, and
Yeah.
he's like he's twisted, and like he's not twisted, but I want to believe that he is.
Yeah.
And but you know, like on the other side, I like thinking that Nate was just a good guy,
Yeah.
and
I think he fits so well his character.
Mhm.
Like he just, yeah.
I feel like the fact that he was born into wealth
Yeah.
was more of a burden to him,
Yeah.
and that he would have been much more happier with the family, like Jenny and Dan, like with the dad like Rufus, and
But he fits so well in that,
yeah.
like in his wealthy background. Like I
Mm,
do see him going to horse rides on Sundays, and
yeah.
it just fits him. It's so natural for him.
Hmm.
It's just like Serena Vanderwoodson. Whereas for Chuck Bass, it was very loud, and for Blair, it was very. It wasn't. I think Blair was very determined into staying where she is, like and moving forward and
Yeah.
further. Um, yeah, but Nathan is just like this. He's, I think he's the guy version of Serena.
Hmm.
Both effortless, both very, like you could tell that they've been in this generational
Yeah.
love for a very long time.
And speaking of Blair, of Serena and Nate, I do agree with you when you say that he is the male version of Serena, and
Yeah.
I think that it would have been so much better if like they ended up together.
It would have made so much sense though.
They just like so beautiful together,
Yeah,
and they match perfectly together, and they would have had the most beautiful kids. I
yeah.
mean, in the show. Also, very controversial, but I don't think that Blair and Chuck work. Like
They're very toxic.
they're very toxic, but like you know, whenever I see them together, like I just ask myself, what do they talk about? Like what do they talk what they don't have anything in common. Like Blair is nerdy. She reads all of these books and she watches all of these movies, and she's smart. She's an A+ straight student. And I don't see Chuck doing these stuff. Like even the way they travel, like when Blair traveled with Serena, she did like she went to museums and saw all of these, you know, like touristy stuff. Whereas when Chuck travels, he's blackout drunk all the time.
Sure.
And just to add up to this, I loved Dan and Blair. I think that they matched perfectly together. They went to the movies together, they read the same books, they
Yeah.
did actual stuff. And when Dan wrote his book, like she was his main character
Yeah.
in the book.
Oof, Dan and Blair, I couldn't say. Oh, yeah, talking about Blair and Jack, I think it comes to show, like, do you think that opposite attracts or that people who are similar end up together?
I think that opposites attract to a certain time.
Mhm.
Like, okay, like you could be very attracted to someone for no reason, but like at some point, after a few years, the attraction will wear off, and you'll have to like have conversation with that person. And if like you can't, um, I don't know, like if you would want to spend the rest of your life with that person.
That's when you get divorced and you get married again, like Lily
To
Beth.
that.
We're kidding. But yeah, okay, yeah, I agree with you. I think
Mhm.
opposite attracts, and it's very nice to have someone who challenges you, and I think that's what worked between Blair and Chuck.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes when people spend a lot of times together, they're gonna end up like brushing off each other's interests
Yeah.
on each other. So this might be helpful. But yeah,
And also, like, I feel like Blair and Chuck, like, they brought the worst from each other.
that's true.
Whereas when she was with Dan, she was just, like, happy, and
Yeah.
he wrote a book when he was with her.
Yeah, true.
So, very controversial opinion, but, like, I stand on what I say.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah.
And I feel like Chuck should have stayed a bachelor for, like, very long, and, like, maybe got married to a model at
Who's 20
55.
years younger than him.
Yeah, he should just have led the Leonardo DiCaprio life. This is how I imagine someone like Chuck.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
No offense to Leo, but that's very sad.
Yeah. I loved like how many famous people were on the show. Like last time I was watching, I'm on season 4 right now, and I saw Carly Kloss as Carly Kloss.
Yes, and Hilary Duff also
Yeah.
as an actress.
As an actress.
Yeah.
Who else? I saw Ivanka Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember. Oh my god, yes.
But it's crazy because I was, Jessica, the girl who played Vanessa, she has a podcast about
Yeah.
Gossip Girl, and she just
Okay.
like keeps talking about the back stage of the show. And she said that like when they were filming the first season, like in New York, like most places didn't want them to film there. And as soon as the show aired, everyone wanted those people on,
Yeah.
like everywhere, like
Yeah.
whether it was in the street, the restaurants, the hotels, and yeah.
Oh, can we also talk about like the landmark the show created? Because it happened, Blair always in the morning she waits on the steps of the Met, and
Yeah.
there's the Met Gala, and I think I've been aware of the Met Gala after watching Gossip Girls. I mean, I knew what it was before, but I
Yeah.
didn't really understand it. And I think that this show just turned this place. It was already a very like a historical landmark in New York, but it just gave it more of a personality after the
Totally.
show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love how they turn New York, and I think that that's the beauty about these TV shows. We learn more about those cities through those shows.
Totally. When I think of New York, I think of Gossip
Yeah.
Girl. Like I just want to see the places that they went to.
Yeah.
And yeah. We didn't talk about Jenny Humphrey.
Yeah, Jenny.
What's the first thing that you think of when I mention Jenny Humphrey? Is it a
Emo.
TikTok?
No, I think about her emo. That's it. What are you talking about? The Adidas commercial?
No, there's
The
this TikTok
Nike
of her when she says, "Dad, I want to go to fashion school." With like a very weird voice.
No.
I'll send it to you.
I know.
It's viral right
Yeah.
now.
I don't know. I like Jenny. She's not nearly one of my favorite characters, but I think she had a very interesting character evolution, and I don't know. I liked her more at the beginning of the show, but I liked how she evoluted. I think she was a very manipulative character, and she was Machiavellic at some points, but I think that she was trying to discover herself through
Yeah.
the TV show. And I think that she struggled a lot in that high school because she was trying to fit in amongst all of these rich kids when she wasn't that. But yeah, but I really like that she wanted to go to fashion school and she was able to make it.
Yeah, I love the passion that
Yeah.
she had,
Yeah.
and it's funny to see that like Her and Dan were the passionate ones.
Yeah.
They had a goal and they just went for it.
I think
Whereas, sorry
no,
to
it's
cut
okay.
you off. When I think of Blair, like I cannot remember what Blair ended up doing after like all her scheming to get into Yale.
Mhm.
Like, what career path did she
Yeah.
choose? I feel like, and also I feel like there wasn't a lot of character development as soon as she got with Chuck. Like her whole world started evolving around Chuck. I don't even know if she continued going to university, and I just think that maybe Chuck's world should have evolved around her.
Yeah.
But I think there was so much going on for him, like his hotel, his fight with his dad and uncle. Whereas for her, it was Chuck, 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 and Chuck.
Yeah. I think I get your point, and yes, I do think that Jenny and Dan were the most passionate, and I think it makes so much sense, and this is why the show makes sense, because these are the two people who had to prove themselves into
Yeah.
their schools. They were amongst all of these people who were already born, like who were already the kids of very successful people and everything, and they just wanted to make something of themselves. And
True.
yeah, but they were both very honest from beginning to end about what they wanted to do. Dan wanted to be a writer. He had this writer aura, and Jenny wanted to be a fashion designer, and she kept doing that. Blair, I think she would have been a very good like manager or leader. I think that's her personality. I don't think she would have been like an artistic person. I think she's just very great at being this type A personality and just bossing people around, and that's who she is. So yeah, and Serena, she was very great at just not caring. Serious. Or like leaving halfway into the conversation. I know the TikTok about Serena.
Yeah.
I have to go. I have,
have to go.
I just have to
Where? Where do you go? Yeah, I'm very excited to see more of Blake Lively because she's a very likable character. Like even I don't know, like when I discovered the Gossip Girl, I used to watch her interviews, and she's so much more likable, and it's crazy to me because Serena is already very charismatic, and to just see that Blake Lively is even more charismatic when she is Blake Lively is cool.
She seems, I don't know if it makes sense, but Blake Lively to me seems like doesn't seem famous. Does that make sense? Like she's very good looking. She definitely has this je ne sais quoi, but she doesn't feel like she's too hung up on like her being famous.
No.
And I really like that about her.
She's an it girl. Yeah. She's just like her character. Yeah. And it makes me excited for It Ends With Us. Although I know we shaded this movie a lot. We said a lot of bad things, but like when did you see the trailer?
Not yet.
The trailer is actually good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Actually, have you shared it? I think you shared it with me.
Maybe.
I don't remember. I don't know. It didn't stay with me. I don't know. I think I should watch it again.
It's very cute. It has a Taylor Swift song in it, and it's...
Right. Now I'm starting to remember. Yeah.
It's very cute.
I have to say, I've seen a few movies for Blake Lively. The Age of Adeline is the one that's popping to my mind. And I think she has this very quiet acting. Like in all the things she does, she's always very quiet. And maybe that's the one thing that I think lacks. I think I don't know, I feel like with Blake Lively, you can't ask her to be passionate or furious about something. But yeah, besides that, I mean, like I'm a fan of her works.
I saw her in Savages, and she was a little bit more chaotic.
Okay.
But she still looked great, even when she was chaotic, and she still had this je ne sais quoi. And I don't think that she can, like, just turn it off.
Yeah.
Which is a nice problem to have.
True.
Yeah, but it's crazy to see like the evolution of their career after the show. I love what Ben Badgley is doing, whether it's his podcast. I love how objective he is about his work, and how sometimes he's like, no, this was bad. He's completely aware of like the good things that he did and the bad things that he did. And I loved I loved him in Easy A with Emma Stone.
He was in Easy A?
He was in Easy A.
I don't remember. What?
He was. Yeah, he was. He actually was.
Was he her close friend?
Or... I think so. I don't remember, but I totally remember him in Easy A.
I think it's coming back to me, but yeah.
And I love him in You. Did you watch You?
I watched the first season.
Okay, the second one is better.
Yeah? Okay.
It has Violeta Pederteri, I'll add her name. Gorgeous, great acting, like very, very emotional acting. Like you could read every emotion in her face, and she's just like so. She's a lot, but it's so beautiful to see on screen. And she's there for 2 seasons.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll check the second season.
Mm.
I'm scared. I get scared
It's
very
not scary.
easily.
Like even when they show some killings, it's never like gore. They don't even show anything. It's just like you assume that this is what happened,
Okay.
but it's not creepy.
All right. I
Mhm.
guess I'll check it out. All right. I think that sums it up for Gossip Girl. Thank you so much for watching. Tell us who you think would have been the perfect match and the perfect couple. I'm curious about that.
And tell us, who would you have preferred as Gossip Girl?
Yeah.
We would love to know.
We'll see you guys next week in our next video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.